coming to you from Santa Fe, New Mexico. In an essay in the New York Times, Episcopal priest Tish Warren wrote, "One Ash Wednesday a decade ago, when I was new to Anglicanism, I knelt at a rail as Father Thomas, my priest, smeared a black cross on each forehead. Remember that you are dust, and to dust you shall return," he intoned and marked the preteen girl kneeling next to me. Then I heard her turn to her mom and whisper, "Does my ash look all right?" Ash Wednesday is perhaps the most offensive day in the church calendar. Not only does it include getting a dirty smudge on your forehead, but you also get this blunt reality check. And just remember, you're going to die. Well, the liturgy is actually a bit more poetic. As Warren says, the words are, "Remember that you are dust, and to dust you shall return." But they have the same meaning. The cruder line came from the movie Moonstruck. It's spoken by Olympia Dukakis, who plays the character of Rose Castorini, the mother of Loretta Castorini, who's played by Cher. Dukakis speaks it to her husband, Cosmo, who she suspects correctly is having an affair. Thus, she's trying to tell him whatever he might do, it won't affect the thing that he's really most afraid of. Those words echo, of course, the story from Genesis 3 of Adam and Eve, when after eating the fruit, the forbidden fruit, and being banished from the garden, God reminds them that they are going to die. And that because of the awareness of that, they're going to experience confusion and fear, frustrated, and they're going to make all sorts of bad choices. But that fate cannot be avoided. And the human mortality rate is still 100%. Lent is oftentimes a time for an extra dose of personal piety, prayer, things like fasting, usually really trying to lose weight, and doing good deeds or giving to charitable causes. We think that those acts of piety make us look better, and hence are concerned that our ashes look good. But the irony is that Lent is actually about dying, and not just about Jesus dying, but our dying as well. The ego wants to look good, preferably even better than most. It wants to be popular, it wants to be successful. And when it comes to religion, our ego is no different. Our ego wants God to like us, and therefore perhaps reward us for our good behavior. Not unlike earning our parents' approval as children. "If I eat my vegetables, then can I get some more ice cream?" we ask. But spiritual teachers down through the ages have always been on to the ego's game. Jesus says, you can't become better. You have to die. Take up your cross and follow me. Lose your life in order to find it. Paul, having gone through just such an experience, describes it this way: "I have been crucified with Christ. It is no longer I who live, but Christ who lives within me." Spirituality is not about getting to God, but finding God is already here and now. Spirituality is about clearing away the ego's life clutter, which is obscuring that fact, preventing us from seeing that God, in fact, is all around us. The Bible and the mystics down through the ages agree that the spiritual life is what Brother Lawrence calls a walk with God. He writes in his famous book, The Practice of the Presence of God, "There is nothing in the world as delightful as a continual walk with God. Only those who have experienced it can comprehend it. And yet I do not recommend that you seek it solely because it is so enjoyable. Do it because of love and because it is what God wants. If I were a preacher, the one thing that I would preach about more than anything else is the practice of the presence of God." Notice that word practice. It's not something to earn, but to learn. Just as we practice the piano or practice our free throws or practice our Spanish, Lawrence says we practice the presence of God. This is nothing less than the meaning of life, according to theologian Catherine Keller. What matters, what might matter endlessly, is what we earth dwellers now together embody. Not what we say about God, but how we do God. The Bible and all the great spiritual traditions agree dying is not the whole story. We're confused about who we are. We're confused about what our life is about. We keep thinking we have to get somewhere and achieve something. But actually, we live in what has been called an eternal now. Past and future and all of our thoughts and fears and anxieties and hopes are really the illusions of our mind. There is only the present. We are already one with God, who is in fact the ground of our very being. It is for this reason that Paul says, now is the day of salvation. Thanks for listening. I wish peace to all of you, and for those who practice it, a blessed Lent.